welcome back to another episode of the Inkwell podcast. Today I have another great writer. His name is Mark. So let's just bring him on and get going here. Mark, welcome to the podcast and thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in and really, what pursued you to get into writing comics?
Sure. So I think I had that same story that everybody has, except for with me, it was great grandmother would take me to the grocery store.
Hmm.
Hey, you can go to the comic spinner rack while I'm shopping if you want. And I could pick out one or two comics.
Hmm.
And just I think just being like an 80s kid, like I was born in the 70s, so being an 80s kid,
Hmm.
just the covers like just really drew me in, right off the bat, like seeing the X-Men, seeing the Hulk,
Hmm.
seeing Batman. My dad read comics, but he was more of like war comics,
Hmm.
detective, the horror stuff. Which I like the Batman stuff. I wasn't big on the war stuff. I wasn't big on the horror stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, it was fun, but I guess I didn't have a familiarity with those characters. And so to me, it was just kind of like, these are okay, but it's not
Yeah.
really what I like. And so just, doing that. And then as I got older, it's interesting. I'm originally from Ithaca, New York, and Ithaca has like one of the longest running comic book conventions. And I just remember, I was probably like maybe 11 or 12 and asked my mom to take me if we could go. And the show was small. It would be at like the small gymnasiums, like instead of the YMCA, we had what was called
Hmm.
GAC, which was the Greater Ithaca Activity Center.
Okay.
It would be in like these little venues like that. But because we were close enough to New York City, they would get these mainstream artists that were working
Yeah.
in New York to come down. And so they had like John Byrne, they had Frank Miller, they had like all these people. It was like, it was a true comic convention at the time, but it was just like you could go in and you could, see these people and meet these people and, have your X-Men book in your hand and be like, oh my God, this is, John Byrne
Yeah.
type of stuff. And so it was super cool. And so that just kind of was the connection for me, was like, oh, I can meet these people that are telling these stories, that are drawing these stories, and kind of see, because I think also like in growing up, playing with action figures, I would come up with all these stories, and you come up with kind of similar to like writing. You're just you're playing this stuff out as you're playing it,
Hmm.
and so I read a lot, read a lot of Stephen King, stuff like that as I went through high school. Started writing in high school, writing, small stuff, short stories, stuff like that. Won some awards. Ended up going into creative writing for my degree. So basically, it's fine arts, but creative writing was my
Hmm.
focus. And always just in the back of my mind, like loved comics. And, I always still read them. I still just, to me, it was like putting that art together with a story was like, the thing for me versus just writing stories. Like,
Yeah.
I could be descriptive and write out the story, and you can read it and use your own imagination to kind of, create that image. But like the comics for me, it was just like seeing that art, seeing like a specific artist, create this creature or person or whatever that you came up with, which just like always blew me away. Like that was just my
Yeah.
favorite part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting take. There's a part of, as a writer, we can write novels, we can write screenplays and all these things, and like you said, it's up to the imagination. But there's something about like putting artwork to that specific character or villain or whatever it is, right? Monster, and then you start bringing in design elements, and it becomes a strong visual media on
Yeah.
top of the writing side of it. And you mentioned formal education, so you actually have a degree in creative writing.
I do. Yep.
Yeah, you're the
Yep. So
first
I've
writer I've
written.
met that
Yep.
has a degree. All of us are pretty much self-taught, and
Yeah.
I
No.
wonder.
And it's paid off. Like I've
Yeah.
written for the WWE Next when they did that series. I've written for Adult Swim. I've
Hmm.
written on video games, and so it definitely, you know, paved the way for that stuff. But still, like I don't know. I just I still need that visual piece of it.
Yeah.
It's just it's crazy. Like it's fun to do that stuff. It's fun to write that stuff and be in writing rooms and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it definitely I love going over a script with an artist and then kind of spitballing back and forth and getting that final creation.
Yeah, that is definitely a lot of fun. What really, I mean, so you've been doing this for quite a while. What really keeps you motivated to
Yeah.
keep producing comics, to keep doing it with the kind of ups and downs of the market?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the one thing that is good and bad, I guess. Like I never fully vested into writing. Like I've always
Okay.
had a 9 to 5 type of job that may entail writing, but not creative writing. Like it may
Hmm.
be writing up, documents for companies or things like that. I did a lot of work in healthcare, so a lot of it was creating documents and policies and procedures
Hmm.
and the federal stuff like that. So that was the thing that always paid the bills. And then it was like I would write in my own free time, just because I wasn't brave enough to take that leap and be like,
Yeah.
okay, I think I can do this, and make a living at it, and not have to worry about having because we have kids and
Yeah.
wife and stuff like that. And it's like can't really take that risk with the
It's
family. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it is tough, and that's a huge leap of faith almost, but it's also a grind, right? And for
sure,
a lot of those that do make it a full-time job, I mean, I see it on social media, like it's a constant grind of promotion, looking for that next job, and there is
yeah,
security in a 9 to 5. There's not, I mean, a lot of us
yeah,
do actually work like normal jobs, and then we kind of do all this on the side and I think that
yeah,
takes some of the stress away as well. Like we can
yeah,
be less stressed about what we're writing and kind of write more what we want to write versus what, oh, do we think this is going to sell 5,000 copies or
yeah.
10, you know what I mean? So I think there's a whole different aspect to not having that stress of having it a career. You mentioned, John Bryan, Frank Miller, things like that. What are those kind of some of your influences, or what were really some of your influences
So
for writing?
it's funny because like when I read comics in the beginning, like I was a huge Claremont Byrne fan. I loved
Hmm.
the X-Men. I loved all the different characters they had.
Hmm.
As I got older, the thing that really like I think brought me back into comics, and it's funny because it probably shouldn't have. Um, when Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe Quesada brought Marvel Knights, like that
Oof, yeah,
was I was living in New
those were
York City at
good.
the time, and that was like I read that Daredevil,
Hmm.
and I knew who Kevin Smith was, but I was like I didn't know his history with comics stuff like that, and I just read it, and I love kind of cartoony art like that, like
Hmm.
Quesada does. And it was funny because at the time, Wizard World was still around. And so Wizard World Philly was coming to town. And it was a short drive from the city. So I drove down. And at that time, like would have Marvel would be there, DC would be there, all
Hmm.
these people were there. And Jimmy lived in New York at the time and he was there. And so, I brought my books and I went up and I was like, oh my God, I'm a big fan. I love what you're doing of this stuff. And I was like, I've got stories I want to tell too. And he was nice enough to be like, really? He's like, well, show me some of your script. Show me what you're doing.
Oh,
He's like, what are you doing later tonight? He's like, come on down to the hotel bar and we'll talk some more. And so I went
wow.
down, I talked to him, and I mean, we've become like lifelong close friends.
That's amazing.
He'll
That is
send me his
wild.
scripts. Like he sent me some hex scripts and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and he would show me because like me, my thinking was I was scripting my comic like a book. Like I would write it
Okay.
out, which I guess you could kind of Marvel style, but I wasn't thinking panels, I wasn't thinking pages, I
Hmm.
wasn't thinking what's got to fit where, and so it was funny. It's the first thing Jimmy was like, well, first thing we got to do is look at the script and see how it's broken down, and then
Yeah.
put your story like this, and he liked it, and he's done like a ton for me. He's read over my stuff. He's done covers for me. Um, every time, like if he comes, because I'm in New Mexico now, so if he comes out west, we'll go to shows
Hmm.
and see him and Amanda, and he's always super nice. They'll have a long line, and he'll be like, "Oh, just come back here, sit back behind the table and talk to me while I'm signing this stuff." Um, and he's always asking, what I'm working on, and he's always
Yeah.
like, if we've done Kickstarters, he's backed it.
Hmm.
He's always read stuff, always given me feedback. So he's been like a huge influence, and it's funny because part of like the other thing I really love about comics is going to conventions and like talking to these creators
Hmm.
and learning about their background and learning about how they're working, what they're doing, and what what kind of things get them going, and what kind of things are bothering them in the industry. And Jimmy came from like an advertising background, and
Hmm.
so he was working in advertising, and then he would tell me that he went to Marvel when Stan was there, and he started started inking stuff, and then it's just he's one of the most humble guys you'll ever meet, but he just I'm always just like, but you've done so much. I'm like, Marvel Knights was
Hmm.
huge. Like you guys really, Marvel was kind of in the dumpster, and you guys, started bringing that stuff back. So
Yeah.
he's been a huge influence. Roger Stern lives in Ithaca, so I usually see him if I go home. And it's funny because there's always like these missed opportunities, and I would hear these stories about when Roger was writing all this stuff, he would bring on like novice writers to help him with his stuff. And so like there were all these other people in Ithaca that like got work because they came in and did this
Wow.
stuff for Roger
Yeah.
Stern. I'm like, well, where was I?
Yeah, it's that's interesting. Jimmy's one of the guys I have yet to meet. I'm still
Yeah.
like I tell people I'm always a fan first. I'm in a way I write, I draw, but I'm kind of self-serving. I do what I like to do, type of thing,
Sure.
and the fans like it. So thankfully there's that. But that's interesting, like having someone of that caliber, almost in a way mentor and give advice and just
Sure.
but it's also for us to take that advice and to go with it, to go forward with it, and not just kind of like sit on our loins, be like, oh, no, I know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
Ego can be a downfall of a lot of people. So
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say, as being an indie creator, what would you say is kind of like your biggest challenge?
So I think the challenge for me is just like, I think with all indie creators, it's finding a collaborative partner that, you
Hmm.
can find a monetary agreement on, and that they're interested in the story that you're doing. And I think like that's like the big thing is to sell that story and get
Hmm.
them vested into it, and where they really want to be a part of that. And for me, it's been funny because like the newer people that read comics don't remember like digital webbing and
Yeah, I
those
do.
sites. And
I'm
yeah, like
guilty.
I would be on there, and and I think back on it, and I'm like, man, those artists would put those pages up there, and they would
Yeah.
get ripped. They would get, some people would
Ugh,
like their
yeah.
stuff, and everybody was like trying to find like a collaborative partner that would want to create with them. Um, and so it's I started there, and I'd met some people, and we did a couple things. And I think I've been fortunate since then that I posted like ideas and stuff on Facebook and social media,
Mhm.
and I've had artists, reach out, or I've seen their stuff and kind of liked it and been like, oh, hey,
Mhm.
I've got this idea for XYZ. What do you think? Is it something you'd want to draw?
Right.
And then, it's worked out that way. Um, it's crazy too. Like I'm in Albuquerque now, and we have Andy Kuhn lives here, Aaron Campbell lives here, Skylar Patridge lives here,
Yeah.
David Williams lives here. Like we've got this, like broad spectrum of creators, and it's like I never would have thought in my lifetime that I would meet like Andy Kuhn or become friends with him, and we're actually collaborating on this idea that he had for a story now. So we'll see, where that goes, but.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's collaboration is definitely a big thing, and I actually found my first work way back on digital webbing, like as just
Yeah.
a colorist. I was like, here's some sloppy colors, and it does. It got your stuff got ripped to shreds. It was almost worse
Hmm.
than social media is today.
Yep.
Like it's out of the
Yeah.
woodwork. You would have no idea. But that kind of builds that thick skin. It builds that ability to take a
Sure.
critique and kind of grow from there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at your website. You have a handful of titles that you write. Do you feel that it's kind of hurt or helped having multiple titles to build like your independent career?
So I think it helped, and it's just I had like all these story ideas that I wanted to get out, and like we did Space Cooler, and the first artist I had for it was vested at first. Said, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this story. Um, Kind of fell behind, and then I met Brian Rogers, who does the Mercy Sparks stuff now.
Hmm.
Um, and so super nice guy, and he was just like he was killing it on the story and stuff. And it was a hard sell because the story itself was kind of intense. It was like I wanted to do, and I'm weird. Like when it comes to like thinking of my stories and stuff like that, it's like I heard this song and it had this note in it, and then in my mind the note was like it sounded to me like this signal going through space, and it was like not
Okay.
finding anything. It was just going through space,
Yeah.
and so I thought, well, what would be, you know, if you're stuck in space, yeah, that's bad. And then, but then I was like, but what if you're in a prison, space prison that's in space? You got nowhere to go. You can't really escape. And then I just kind of build backwards from that, and it was like, what would make this worse? And so then my thought was, well, okay, the government has set up this plan to eliminate crime on Earth, and people that commit capital crimes are set up to space every year to this space prison. They do a lottery. There's two cops chosen in this lottery that are sent up, and they man the station for a year,
Hmm.
and they have to essentially eliminate the same number of people in the prison that are coming up because it's at capacity.
Okay.
And my thought was just like, okay, now it's, one of these cops has been waiting to get up there, and he's hoped that he would get selected for this, and he's got a reason he wants to go up there. And now this guy that he's partnering with has never wanted to go. He's got a family, he's never wanted to leave, and wanted to have to go up there. And so then it's just, playing on from that. Then it's like, okay, this guy is going to try to be the alpha because he wants to control the situation. And when he gets up there, he wants to be able to do what he wants to do
Hmm.
in that year that he's up there. And he essentially tells the other cop that, hey, sit back, relax, I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about it. And then it was just, we had to make the villain bad enough to be sent up there. And so we created this guy, and I mean, he was pretty bad. And it was just like, it was interesting to me. It's just the way that like the way I think, the way an artist thinks. And we had like this kind of brutal scene where this person gets beaten with a crowbar. And in my mind, I told Brian, I said, you can go two ways with this. I said, we can set up the page so that it's just this like dog with this like wobbly head, and we hear the sound effects, and as it
Hmm.
starts getting worse the dog's head just kind of bobbles and gets
Hmm.
going more, and then we kind of see blood splatter on it. And we don't show anything else, like we leave it up to
Right.
the reader's imagination. They can do that. Or I said, if you can keep it PG-esque, you can go the other route. And he decided to go the other route. And then it was funny because of all the, from the entire four issue run, he sent me pages. He sent me the two pages where the person's getting beat up with the crowbar.
That's fun. Actually, we'll dive into this because I was gonna jump in and have you talk about it. I mean,
Sure.
you already kind of talked quite a bit about Space Cooler. I mean, that
Yeah.
seems like a really fun issue, fun story. Is that the artwork for the current issue there then, or
So that is from, I believe that's issue 2, because that's when they're heading to
okay,
space. Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
yeah,
And then this one was like we kickstarted it successfully. We did well with
okay,
it. And then it went to this publisher, Blood Moon, who lasted about 2 years, maybe.
okay,
And then they went out when the whole Diamond issues came up. Said that they wouldn't be able to do anything anymore. They did publish all 4 issues though, so we'll give credit for
okay.
that.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this book too. It's crazy because like you meet all these people in the industry. So it's 4 issues. Jimmy did a cover. Andy Kuhn did a cover. Simon Bisley did a cover, and
Yeah.
then Victor Santos did a cover. So we had
Wow.
like really
That's some
good
heavy hitters. Yeah. that's that's pretty heavy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I mean, you have another title, The Accursed.
Yeah, so the Accursed was same thing. Like we did it. Blood Moon picked it up. It's a 4 issue mini.
Mm-hmm.
They did three before they went out, and then we got lucky, and a comic shop actually printed issue four, limited it to 100 issues,
Oh, okay.
and we got it out there. So this one, totally different. Thought the artist is in France,
Mm-hmm.
David Kames Casey, and for this one, it was, we thought about. I wanted to do something. My sister's like this huge Buffy fan, and I was like, well, I would like to do something like that, but not as intense. So for us, there was this family that's been like the balance for um, between humanity and supernatural stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and as each generation goes, it's the firstborn daughter that takes over and continues the legacy. And so my thought was that we have this hedge witch, and she essentially comes in. She knows that the daughter is going to be the next one in line, and she curses this kid so that they're not going to age, and so she can't get to the age of where she would take it over. Ends up, killing the parents, and so it's this girl and her brother, and they're on this search for this hedge witch now to try to reverse the curse. And as they go along, they learn, like what's happening, how these things happen. There's vampires, there's werewolves. We had, because I love Clash of the Titans, we have a Kraken in
Mm-hmm.
it.
Nice.
We have a mechanical owl, which we didn't name, but there is a mechanical owl in there.
That's
We do
that's fun.
see,
Yeah.
we do see some, there's gods in it, there's stuff like that, and so it's like really just seeing, what this girl's going through, and just seeing like this whole huge universe of characters. And then we did like a multiverse twist where the hedge witch goes and pulls different versions of herself from other realities for this big
Mm-hmm.
battle at the end. And so it's funny because with comics you never know, and it was
Yeah.
like we got through three issues, then the store picked up the fourth issue. We did that. It's being published in France now with a French publisher,
Okay.
with French dialogue and stuff like that, where David is. So, and
That's
this
fun. Yeah.
one was looked at to be optioned. So, yeah, as an animated series.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of our
So.
goal, right? Is to get things optioned out and to
Yeah, I
spread the
mean, you want to
word.
get it out there to as broad audience as you can.
Yeah.
You want to share that
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
And Adrift.
So, and then Adrift was essentially the first story that I did with artist in Mexico, Jacob. And this one was essentially Fantasy Island meets, oh, what's the name of that? It's going to kill me. The, oh man. Essentially, it's like the main character wakes up on the shore of this island and doesn't know where she is, and how she
Mm-hmm.
got there. And essentially it's this island is like a pay to play place
Are
for rich
you
people
thinking
where they
about
can.
Lost?
No, not
Thinking about
Lost,
Lost.
but
Oh, okay.
the oh, I can picture the guy that did it too. The movie was like where these people went to Europe and Hostel.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yeah, so it's like Fantasy Island meets Hostel. So it's essentially you can pay, and then these rich people will bring someone to the island for you, and you
Okay.
can do whatever you want with them, however you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so she stumbles on this island and doesn't really know why she's there. They kind of grab her and just kind of hold her because they don't know what to do with her. She sees what's going on. And then as the story goes on, we see that more about this society and what their plans are. And then we end up with a big battle on the island. It was fun. Antarctic Press printed part of the story in Jungle Comics.
Okay.
And so we did that. We kickstarted this one as well, and it went well. And again, another Victor Santos cover. So I think Victor's done a cover for everything I've done.
Yeah, well, it's yeah, when you make friends in the industry, you tend to like you like what they do. There's that good
Yeah,
working relationship. It's like, yeah, just do whatever with everything I'm working on, and have
yeah,
fun with it. Um,
yeah.
and then are all these books available? Like, are they still available, or are they kind of out of
Yeah.
print?
If you go to Midtown, any bigger comic shops like that,
Okay,
they still have the Accursed. They still have. So Space Cooler. The only difference is that Blood Moon changed the name to of the book, and it's the. Oh man, it's gonna kill me now. I can tell you really quickly. But they changed the name of it. They weren't. I don't know why they
okay,
didn't like Space Cooler, and I was just like, it makes sense to me. You're in space.
yeah,
Jail's a cooler. It's space cooler.
yeah. I okay. I'd be curious on behind the scenes on why that got changed.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. So it's the Long Road to Retribution is what they changed it to.
Okay. Yeah. Something
And
cool
so
and catchy
yeah,
versus something long and drawn out.
yeah. So yeah. And then I just didn't, I didn't argue with them. It was like, you want to print it, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
If it brings in something else for the artist and stuff, then, then
Yeah.
that's
That's
cool.
awesome.
And then we
Yeah.
just at the end of last year, we had a Kickstarter. Alex Regal and I are doing a Western
Okay.
titled Merciless. And so we did really well with that. We're in talks with Ignition Press, so you may see it coming to Ignition. And it's basically kind of, I mean, my dad was a big Western guy, so it's kind
Hmm.
of, I think Unforgiven is everybody's favorite, everybody's go to. And so essentially, the story is this we follow this female lead, and she's a Native American. She was basically abducted as a child and taken to this farm with a white family. And then she ends up getting abducted again by this traveling brothel where they just go and they grab kids from these towns as they travel through. And so now she's gotten out of that and she's on the revenge trail and she's trying to follow this brothel to see to get there to find out who's running it and like that. So
I do love a good revenge story.
yeah, and it's funny because with these artists, it's always like the first thing I ask is like, what do you not want to draw? And I was so
Okay.
afraid Alex was going to be like, I don't want to draw horses,
But yeah,
but
that's
he
cool.
did. And actually, I can show you really quickly. He's painting everything on the pages, so I don't know how well you can see it, but this is one of the pages.
Oh yeah. I did definitely see
So
that on social media. Yeah.
yep. So he's
Really
he's
cool.
painting all the pages. So it's
Hmm.
it's been a process. But again, like Alex has that kind of quirky style, but
Hmm.
I love it. And it's weird because to me, when I look at his art, it reminds me of like Cracked or Mad Magazine, and I don't know why, but it just the style of it just reminds me of one of
Yeah.
the artists from that. And so, but it's cool. Like I never would have thought, I would work with some of these artists and
Hmm.
some of these other creators.
And you mentioned Kickstarter. Like, have you, how do you kind of manage the whole promoting and getting growth? Because I mean, that's what we all struggle with as an indie
Sure.
creator. And really, it's about, getting on podcasts, getting more eyes on your book.
Yep.
But like in social media, there's always like this tug, pulling and giving and give and take. And, how do
Yeah.
you kind of manage that landscape?
So I mean, and it's easier when you have someone like Alex as the artist because he's already
Hmm.
got this built-in following. But like for my early stuff on Kickstarter, it was really just pounding every day, asking friends and family, hey, could you share this? Is there something you
Hmm.
would know? Local comic shops have been great supporters, so just printing out stuff with a barcode and saying, hey, if you're interested in this, scan here and you can get
Yeah.
back the project. it's and luckily, I mean, not luckily, but I've completed everything we've done on Kickstarter. We've delivered on time.
That's
I think
important.
one might have been like a month late just because we were having problems with the printer, but
Hmm.
I think that helps too. Is just making sure that you're completing this stuff so that someone reads your stuff and they're interested. They'll be interested to come back for the next one and for the
Yeah.
next one, and you don't want to leave that that bad taste in their mouth. And I've been lucky, like I said, like I've known Jimmy. Jimmy's backed everything I've done. He'll share it. And so, we'll pick up things here and there. I try to time, if I'm going to do a Kickstarter, I try to time it around a time where I may be doing a couple conventions that month or
Hmm.
something and just try to pick up, someone new here. Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, is this something that you think you would like? So I think I do it like everybody else. I think I don't think there's any secrets or any anything that hasn't been tried. Um, but I think, like I said, sometimes I think you get lucky, and like with this one with Alex, he had a following, and so that helped. And he was really willing to do. I mean, he was drawing people into the book. That was one of the pledges we had. He was, God, what else was he doing? Remarks. He was doing, all
Hmm.
these extra things to try to help us as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I did see your post about a convention. So, I mean, we'll dive into that and talk about what you got going on with this. Because
Sure.
this is pretty cool. I mean, are you kind of like one of the main people behind it, or are you just
So I'm the
a artist there?
so I'm the yeah I'm the co-creator. I'm the co-founder. so
Wow.
yeah, I've been like I'm always a fan. Like I like big shows. Like I like going
Hmm.
to Fan Expo. I like going to all that stuff. Um, but I also just like most people, think that the comics were kind of going to the wayside, and it wasn't
Hmm.
like a lot going on. And we have a bigger, we have a show here that's kind of like that, like the fan type show where they have wrestlers and they have
Hmm.
actors and things like that, and they don't really give comics like that much of a spotlight. It's like a handful of creators and they don't really do a lot. And so having so many creators here, and having creator friends in Texas and in
Hmm.
Arizona, I thought, let's give this a shot. Let's see if it'll work. And so it's funny because the local CGC guy here, he's an older gentleman, big comic fan. He's been comic fan forever. I was like, well, do you want to try this? He's like, yeah, let's give it a go. And so the first year, we talked to the Shriners here, and essentially it was whatever was made from the table sales and the entry would go to them to cover the venue, and then they would give us the venue to use. And so we tried it just to see without putting a lot of money into it, will this work? And like I said, we had local, Andy Kuhn is the best. He
Hmm.
came and did the show, and we got some of the other local people, and it went well. It was not spectacular, but it went well. We did
Hmm.
enough that we would want to do it again. So we did year two, same thing. We were at the Shriners. We brought in Skylar Patridge came that year. Aaron came that year, and we did well. We went to 2 days. The first year was one day, so which is to see. Last year we moved to a hotel, and so filled in 3 ballrooms.
Wow, that's pretty
And
big.
it went well, enough so that this year we added another ballroom. But I mean the good thing is that like the people that come are like so so nice and so like wanting to help.
Hmm.
Thomas Healy, who's the editor in chief for Spawn, is in Arizona, and he came last year and he was offering free portfolio reviews. He would talk to people about what he looks for, things like that, and people got work. I mean, I know David Harrigan, who's known for Lady Death,
Hmm.
has got a Spawn cover coming up because they met at the show and kind of talked. Matt Gagnon, who was the longtime editor in chief for Boom, lives in Santa Fe now. So he was at the show only Sunday last year, but he was offering portfolio reviews and for free, just talking to people.
Yeah.
We charge $6 to get in for the day, $10 for two, for both days. We were able to add panels this year. That's the one thing we didn't have last year was panels because we didn't have that additional ballroom.
Right.
And every year we've asked for feedback and we've tried to add, something new to the show and something that will, benefit people. And the main thing we heard last year was just that they didn't have something to keep them there at the show, the whole day. And
Okay.
so we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll do panels. We'll add panels and we'll, give you something to do. This year also we've added a drink and draw to benefit the Hero Initiative. And so Hero Initiative is going to send us some coasters, and it's $30. And then all the creators will sketch for you for the $30. So helping Hero Initiative, and you're getting an original sketch for $30. So
Yeah.
I think it's
That's
pretty
awesome. Yeah, that's a great cause. Great. I've done some drink and draws in my day and worked with Hero Initiative. So yeah,
yeah,
it's really a good cause. Yeah, I mean that's a big kind of a big leap from like a 1 day show going into a 2 day show and
yeah,
just expanding and kind of listening to what the public wants to give them something like panels and things of that nature. I know we have. I mean, you sent me this, and this just kind of shows like a lot of the creators that are going to
yeah,
be there, a lot of the artists, things like that. And to be going for year four, obviously it's got to be going well enough to keep doing
yeah,
it, right? I mean, we as indie
yeah,
creators have a hard time. We can't always take a loss on things
yeah,
for a long time. But that's really awesome, and that's something if you're in the area or something I'm going to keep on my radar because I'm up in the
yeah,
Seattle area, so
uh,
Pacific Northwest, but
yeah,
definitely willing to travel for a show, I guess, for something
yeah,
like this, a
yeah,
smaller show. I know Emerald City up here is such a huge show, but they
yeah.
really have. I was reading an article a couple years ago, and they literally are just every year they reduce about 15% of what doesn't work. And
Oh wow,
unfortunately, some of that 15% is comic book creators, indie creators,
sure.
artists. So it's like, is it becoming more of a festival and you're not able
Yeah,
to have that nice meet, like you said, a portfolio review? I mean, a free portfolio review. You don't, that's not something very common nowadays. And to be able to
yeah,
talk to professionals, if that's what you want to, a career you want to get into, it's really important to still offer these types of shows to have them
yeah,
for the up and coming generation. Um, it was kind of weird. Like I think growing up, I also grew up was born in the '70s, grew up in the '80s, and back then the shows were definitely like these shows, smaller in
yeah,
hotels, and then they just exploded into once Image hit and into the '90s, 2000s, and
yeah,
it just kind of became almost too commercialized. And not to be like an old fuddy duddy, but you think like these are the kind of shows that bring in those that next generation of artists and writers and creators and show them like you can do this, right? And let's
yeah,
see what you got. Like it's always about fresh new ideas. So it's real.
yeah,
I personally I would say it's really important to have these kinds of shows going on. So yeah, we'll
yeah,
definitely help promote that and get people there. It looks like
yeah.
there's a lot
Appreciate
going
it.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do VIP bags to try to help offset the cost, and I mean,
Hmm.
there's the reason why we charge $50. We do a VIP party Friday night, so once everybody's loaded in, um, all the vendors and creators and stuff, we kind of gather in one of the ballrooms, and
Hmm.
it's just kind of like if you're a VIP, here's your chance, man. One on one, you can talk to these guys. They're not, drawing. They're not focused
Yeah.
on stuff at their table. You can talk to them about, whatever you want. They're all friendly. They're all super nice. Um, and it kind of gives those VIPs their own little thing. We bring in, finger food, stuff like that. Um, and it's been interesting because as we've grown, like each year we've tried to add something new and tried to grow. Like this year, Boom is sending us a bunch of stuff. Mad Cave is sending us some stuff. Dark
Nice.
Horse has sent us stuff almost every year, and they've been super great partners and sending us lanyards and comics and all this stuff and really saying, hey, we really want to support it. We really want to see this succeed. Um, and so in the mix like this year, it's just like to me, and I'm biased because I'm a comic fan, but it's like
Yeah.
Andy, who started as a cartoonist, will tell me about all these people. And like, I didn't know Rick Geary lived in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who Rick Geary was at first. And Andy's like, "What do you mean you don't know who he is? You should look at this, and this, and this, and this." And so I did. I went back and I looked at the older Dark Horse where they did like the Dark Horse Presents, where it would have like four stories in there.
Yeah.
And Rick was writing and drawing stuff, and he still does. Like he just had a Kickstarter, but he does like these. He did like a Lizzie Borden graphic novel, and he's done like all this stuff, and he like on Facebook almost every day he posts like a sketch or a drawing that he's done, and so like I'm super excited to meet this guy. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't
Yeah.
know that this guy had done all this stuff. Um, Raymond Gay, who I've become really good friends with he and his
Hmm.
wife, and super popular, super nice guy, down to earth. He takes the time to talk to people about what he's doing. We got Brett Booth to come out for Saturday, so
Yeah, I saw that.
Brett
That's
doesn't do a ton of shows because he's got health issues,
yeah.
and that's why he can't do Sunday because he has to go home. But he's like, yeah, I'll be there Saturday. I'm going to do some commissions before I get there, so I'll have stuff with me. So
I
it's
might
it's
have to
just
fly down there just to meet Brett because he's. I'll bring my stack. Not, I won't be, let's say, inappropriate with my stack of books, but there's a stack of Brett
yeah.
Booth books. Okay. Yeah, he's
Yeah, I mean, if you
huge
ever want
influence.
to, want to come down to the show, let me know because we always try to, we do it. We always get a good mix, and we always get,
Yeah,
professionals that are working, and we get a good mix of indie creators. We charge $60 for a 6 foot table per day, for creators to set up because I want them to be successful. I want them to, not take a huge loss, and I want them
yeah,
to stay interested and stay keep trying this. Don't,
right,
pay $300 for a table at MegaCon or whatever,
right.
not sell anything, and then be like, well, yeah, whatever. I'm done. I'm not gonna, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna try to do this anymore. And I think with the venue that we're in and being like smaller like that, it becomes like just it's more sincere. It's more like face to face with these people,
hmm
and
hmm
the people that have come, like we've had people come from Colorado last year. Like his family came down, and I just happened to be like, hey, how you doing? Did you travel far? And they're like, oh yeah, we came from Colorado. We saw on one of the convention websites that you guys were doing this, so we figured we'd come down. And I'm like, that's great, man. Like I love it. And we actually got somebody. Committed Comics from Washington is coming
yeah.
to the
I
show.
actually. Oh, that's
So
nice because I know Tom. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. He was like he was like one of the first people to apply and get a table. So
yeah.
I was just surprised. I'm like, are you sure this is New Mexico? Are you sure that you picked
Oh
the
yeah,
right
no,
convention?
Tom goes everywhere. He's
Yeah,
he's a fun guy. Like like me, he likes to talk, but he has a really cool variety of books. I almost
nice,
was very close to publishing stuff through Committed, but just he's a really good guy, good publisher. So yeah, he
nice.
likes to travel.
Yeah, and I think if I don't may be wrong, but I thought they were celebrating like 30 years or something
Yeah, yeah, he's been
this
doing
year.
it for a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So it's interesting. Like
yeah,
and this is what we wanted. We've always wanted people to come in from out of state and
hmm
to come and just try the show. We're like, you know what, it's really not that much. The hotel gives us like a really good room rate, so we get room block
hmm
for pretty much everybody. The rate they give us as many rooms as we need, and it's just been like, I mean, we're lucky. Like this year alone, we started getting applications like right after Christmas in like bulk where we were way ahead of the game of any of the years we've done this show. Like normally we weren't taking any money in until end of January, February, and like we're at this point we're probably 85% sold out.
okay,
And so
nice.
it's yeah, and it's a mix. Like we get a lot of comic dealers.
Hmm
We do have some authors, so we do have authors there too. A ton of indie creators, and then we try to get about 24, 25 creators. And like this year, we have the themes are kind of like spawned. So we've got I think five people have done stuff for Spawn. And then
Mm,
Ninja Turtles, we've got Ben Bates, who did a ton of stuff for IDW for Sonic and
yeah.
Turtles. And of course, Andy, who's like, the turtle, like the third after
Yeah.
Eastman and Laird. And then it's like everybody knows Andy's Turtles. So
Yeah.
they may not know that it's no Andy, but they know, like, they recognize his stuff. So,
Right.
and Aaron's done a turtle cover. Alex has done a turtle cover. And it's funny because, like, I don't think a lot of people realize, like, Andy was the original artist for The Last Ronin.
Hmm.
And there's an ash can out there, and I don't think they put like a ton of them out there because he didn't have any. But there's an ash can of like 5 to 10 pages maybe of Andy's Last Ronin
Turtles.
artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, it's great that you're seeing growth. I think, it's just serving that market as other shows get bigger. I feel like there's definitely space for these old school kind of. I say old
yeah,
school, but I mean,
yeah,
late 90s or whatever, 80s shows where it's more personable, it's more genuine,
yeah,
it's more for the creators and the artists and those that enjoy that, right? There's plenty of pop culture anime cons out there, but
yeah.
do we do we have these genuine comic cons anymore? Less and less, but that this one
Yeah.
seems to be definitely one of those. So yeah, it's on my radar to definitely look into potentially next
Well,
year. We'll see,
we're trying.
but that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and next year we may have to move to a bigger venue, which is
Hmm.
good. But it's just like, we've kind of looked at the number we have this year, um, people that are returning, and the good that's the other good thing is, like, we've had people have wanted to come back each year.
Hmm.
So, I know, like, a bunch of them live here, but they could still say no. I've got something better to do. It
Right.
wasn't worth my time. But and it's crazy too because, like, last year Andy brought out these original pieces that I had never seen before. He had like a Hulk that was in the San Diego Comic Con magazine. He had a page for that. He had this amazing Teen Titans that was based on, like, the cartoon artwork, like, page that was never used. And he's got like Last Ronin pages, and he was just bringing this stuff out, and like it
Nice.
had never been out before. It was for sale at the show,
Yeah,
so
that's
like you
cool.
never know what you're gonna
Yeah, what's
find.
going to show up, right? Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. That's a lot of fun. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit. I think it's
sure.
been great talking to you. It's really been
Yeah, you
great to
too.
get to know you. We never really
Yeah,
met. Kind
yeah,
of,
no, no.
I just saw a post, reached out, like, hey, let's get do a show. I mean, why not?
Yeah,
Let's
man, I
talk about
appreciate
this.
it.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
pleasure. I appreciate
definitely
you
don't
being
be a
on.
stranger, man. Don't be a stranger. I love
Oh,
chatting, even if it's not like, like this live stuff. Just chatting about, the industry, what's going on, what people are working on. Like, I always love
yeah.
seeing the different things people are doing.
Yeah, there's markets that are, I think, as markets kind of maybe fizzle out. I think there's new markets that emerge. So it's always this like ebb and flow about what's on the horizon, and without looking too much in the past and kind of living in the past, we always have to look
Mhm.
forward, right? So
Yeah,
that's what we try to do as indie creators, to stay on top of trends and keep doing this because we love
yeah,
doing it. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. And,
Yeah,
I will see all of you guys on the next podcast.
awesome. Thanks for having me.